Hi, everyone. I'm Gina Minardi, and I'm a licensed therapist who got fed up with therapy. This is a one-woman show about my journey of finding the spaces between non-traditional approaches of healing. What I learned is that there's no one right way to heal, and you truly are your best resource. Therapists and healers are meant to support you on your path, but they don't have all of the answers. You do. This show is about the spaces between laughter, tears, thoughts, ego, soul, messy growth, and moments of joy. It's about personal liberation, inner knowing, and the tools that get you there. I will cover topics that make many of us uncomfortable and interviewing people who are willing to go there. I've spent thousands of hours listening to human beings navigate their life story, from rehabs in Malibu to homeless shelters in East LA, and now my private practice. It has been some of the most profound, painful, and beautiful moments in my life. Thank you so much for joining me. Hi, everyone. I am super excited to introduce Ciuin Doherty today. He is a fantastic psychotherapist. Ciuin is actually my number one. He's where I refer anybody that I can't see. I refer to Ciuin because I trust him. I trust his wisdom. I trust his expertise. And I'm super excited for this conversation today because we're just going to talk all things therapy and healing. So hi, Ciuin. How are you?
Hi, Gina. I'm good. I'm a little nervous, but mostly excited to be diving into this conversation. So yeah, I'm ready to go.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. So let's just first start with talk to the audience about how you got into therapy.
Yeah. So let me see. I think probably since I was a kid, I had an interest in psychology, but I remember looking at it. I grew up in Ireland, between Ireland and Wales. And I remember looking at the A levels in psychology, and it was all about running mice and rats around like cages or mazes or something like this. I've always had a phobia of mice and rats. So I was like, there's no way I can study psychology. So I kind of put it on the back burner, ended up falling into in a certain way, or looking into work as a television producer, which I enjoyed. And it had me travel the world and had a lot of cool experiences. But there was always a part inside that felt like there was a deeper part of me that was like, it's not my calling. It's not my calling. It's not, there was something inside of me that was dissatisfied and actually kind of despairing a little bit during my 20s of would I ever find that thing that just lights me up, that feels like a soul fit. And I looked around and I couldn't see what that thing was. And I guess at a certain point, right around 30, I actually started my own therapy. It took me quite a journey to get there because growing up in Ireland, if you go see a therapist, that means you're messed up, right? So I was like, I'm struggling with some stuff, but I'm not going to go see a therapist. I went to see a coach first because I was like, oh yeah, coaches, they just tweak a couple of things. Like basically you're good. They're just, you're basically great. They're just going to tweak a couple of things. But quite quickly into working with this coach, I was like, oh no, there's deeper stuff. There's some childhood stuff here. There's some stuff around, just deeper elements than he was able to go with me. So I went, and my first experience of therapy, I was so lucky in the therapist that I went to see. I actually just recently started seeing him again, years and years later, and he's really wonderful. And he created a space for me in literally about our second or third session where I was able to share some childhood experiences, painful experiences that I'd never put into words before. I carried these experiences inside of me and the emotions, the overwhelming emotions that went with them, but I'd never put them into words before. I'd never had somebody look at me and go, that's really tough. That's really intense what you went through. And he created such a space as I was able to also feel, not just talk about it, but feel the pain of those experiences in the moment. And I probably hadn't cried for 10 years prior to this point. The thought of crying prior to my first working with my first therapist felt like I would fall off a cliff. Like I would fall off a cliff into a well of grief, and that would be it. I'd die. That was how sort of big or overwhelming it felt. And to be able to actually feel, and I didn't die, and I was sort of caught in this, like, just by this beautifully, wonderfully grounded, empathic male therapist, mentor, was just groundbreaking for me. And I remember walking along the cliff top outside of his therapy office. This is in Wales, and right by the sea. And I had this crazy feeling of, and I'd read no spirituality prior to this point, but it was a crazy, visceral experience of oneness, of dissolution of like my boundaried small self, and a feeling of I am the same as the ocean. I'm the same as the sky above. I'm no different from the clouds. It was like this ecstatic experience of blending with nature. And it lasted for a few hours. And I was like, whatever this is that's happening, whatever my therapist just did for me is, and it was very much around that moment that I was like, oh, this is what I want to do for other people, what my therapist for me, because this is profound. And this is worthy of a lifetime's work. This is worthy of my time and my energy. This is a good, excellent way to spend my life and to spend my energy.
I mean, I just have to say, you're the first guest who's brought tears to my eyes. I'm like, I'm a little not shocked with my response because I'm a sensitive human, but what a beautiful, 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 beautiful account of what therapy can do for somebody. And particularly, and I know you and I were talking about this before, and also for men, right?
Yeah.
And you talking about it had been 10 years before that you had not cried. You had not let out this deep upwelling of emotional stuckness. And then to also have another male hold space and deep empathy and resonance, right? Some would say, in the exchange of kind of the mirror neurons, all the things you and I both know, which might actually bring us into what you and I were talking about a bit before this, but wow. Yeah. Wow.
Thank you. Yeah, it was very, very profound, very special. And I have just wells and oceans of gratitude for who is again my therapist now. We, like I said, rejoined forces. Kit Lauren is his name. And to the point of mirror neurons, you just got me thinking as you said that. It's like what I've come to learn about therapy, both from my own experience and working with clients, is that such a central part of what we do is undoing aloneness. We suffer at all times in life, but particularly as children, when we're alone with overwhelming experiences. Now, if we have a supportive people around us, we can go through some pretty traumatic stuff. There's actually a study I read about recently on child soldiers in Tibet, and that the child soldiers who came back to their villages and were welcomed in with open arms, right? We're seen good, and we're seen as having done what's necessary, barely had any PTSD. The children who went back to where they were seen as outcasts or they were rejected suffered terrible PTSD. And that's an extreme example. The same is true for all of us. We don't come into the world with the capacity to self-soothe, with the capacity to hold big emotions or big experiences alone. learn to self-soothe, having an attuned other with us. That's called co-regulation. They hold us in the experience. Now, if we don't have that, if we had caregivers or families or peer groups in which we were not delighted in which care was not explicitly given, then we have to deal with those emotions by ourselves. And as we don't have the capacity to self-soothe, the best we can do is cut them off, right? It's cut off. And for boys, a lot of this, and I work with women, men, and couples, but with a lot of the men that I work with, we cut off our more vulnerable emotions that even if they weren't explicitly dismissed, as in like boys don't cry, that don't come to me with that, and that would be explicitly dismissed, even if it's just a subtle turning away of a parent or a moment of discomfort on our parent, or just a sense that they're not in that part of us. The most important thing as children is maintain that connection with our caregivers. Otherwise, biologically, we don't make it. The primal part of us, we die, right? We will cut off whatever is necessary in order to maintain that connection with the caregivers. But then we come into like our adult lives and we don't know how to cry, right? Because resulted in some sort of subtle drawing of love. Mm-hmm. We have this embodied anticipation. Our body predicts, if I cry, if I'm vulnerable, this other person is going to turn away from me. My partner is going to turn away from me. My friends are going to turn away from me. So not only will I feel all that stuff that feels rough, I'll also be feeling shame about it, and I'll be feeling alone with it. Yeah. And so to come to therapy, so much of our job as therapists is to undo the aloneness and that so many of us feel. I often feel like in therapy, our clients borrow our. So as a therapist, if we can be grounded, if we can breathe, if we can be in the ventral vagal branch of the parasympathetic nervous system, that's the place that our organism wants to be in. That's where our whole brain is online. We have the capacity to connect and to empathize. We can be in that space. Our client through their neurons is going to pick up on our internal state, and they're going to start to feel some of that sense of groundedness. They borrow our brains, and in that sense, their zone of tolerance becomes wider. They can feel more without slipping into dysregulation or panic, and therefore having their sort of old protections come online, which for a lot of men is just to numb out, to dissociate. It's an unconscious process. So we help our clients more, right? Sometimes that's more pain, sometimes that's more joy, right? Joy is a vulnerable joy and connection. They require open up, and they require our hypervigilance for danger to kind of settle back in the background. So it can actually be really scary for a lot of people to stay with good feelings, because part of our brain, that part that's always danger, is like, I can't scan for danger and allow you to be in this good place full of gratitude. And system after 10 or 15 seconds of a good feeling will often start to tighten. And then that sort of part of our brain that scans for danger comes back online. So part of my work with clients is not only can we like feel the pain and the difficulties that need to be felt in order to release them, don't carry them around underneath like a veil of anxiety, rather, or also can we build our tolerance to stay with the good, right? Rather than getting pulled away back to a more survival response.
Oh, it's so beautiful that you bring this up. I have a client who, something that we've worked on is just because she's had such that hypervigilance her whole life and really did not feel safe expressing emotions or having parents that attuned to her and were able to fully see her. And something that we really work on is pleasure, joy, recreation. And that actually took a long time for that really to kind of resonate and become embodied within her. And it's been so cool to witness, because now we talk more about joy and pleasure and, and the hypervigilance, I know, right, has gone down. And I even would say, going back to, I remember my personal therapist, Sharon Rogers. I'm giving you a shout out right now, Sharon. Years I've seen Sharon. I don't see her currently, but I was quite dysregulated from my own stuff in my life, and just her calm, grounded, attuned, I would just drop in and I would go to my space of big tears and, deep anxiety and all of the things. But her anchor, and so that co-regulation is so real. And it is, I think, the most beautiful part of the work that we do is it's we're part of it's very circular. And I think that's what a lot of people don't realize. It is this, and I'm sure even, I don't want to digress too much, but it also made me think about couples work. And right, because a lot of times, and I think I even before was a little bit misguided in my own relationship. I talk about this in an episode before, where my partner and I used to say to each other, like, you self-soothe. Oh, you need to self-soothe. And, you take a breath. But versus, well, but also, how can a partner be an anchor for you? And right?
I love that. Well, two thoughts came up even before you went on to couples work, and I want to touch on that in a second, as you were talking about the co-regulation in the therapy room with your therapist, when we're the client or the clients that we work with, as we start to be able to trust, right, that another person, I can open myself enough to receive regulation, to be able to resonate with this more grounded nervous system of the other person. As we can open to that in therapy, and this is where therapy becomes like a little training gym, right, for real life or for life outside of therapy. To the extent I can start to do that with my therapist, my system starts to learn even below consciousness level, other people, it's possible that other people could be sources of comfort to me. And if we didn't have a lot of that experience growing up, and I think, again, this is true for a lot of the men that I work with, it's not even within our frame of reference that when we're struggling or when we're in pain, that we could turn towards someone else. That's not even on the menu of options, because it's not an embodied experience that we had in that time when our brain was so malleable and learning who we are, who others are, and what the world is to us. So I think in individual therapy, that it can become like a little training spot for life. And then to come to couples, I love couples work. It's super alive.
Yes, it
is. You never know what's going to be happening, as you come into the session, what space the people are going to be in. But what's so lovely about it is you also see the results of the work. And you see this in individual therapy, but just not quite as dramatically.
Yeah.
You see the results of the work happening in front of you as you help your couples, as a therapist, as you help your couples have different types of interactions, the interactions that both of their nervous systems have been craving for so long, but that have got caught behind their defenses or often their differing attachment styles. Mm-hmm. I mean, so often what I see in my couples is just this, and it's pretty well known, but it's amazing to me just how common it is this more sort of pursuer withdrawer dynamic, which would sort of correlate to sort of like the withdrawer being a more avoidant attachment style. Mm-hmm. Often men, but not always. I've also seen it work the other way. And then the pursuer being a more anxious kind of attachment style. Mm-hmm. So what happens is basically, however we found safety as children is how we bring it on into our adult relationships. Unless we've done a ton of therapy and sort of like really, really gone underneath all this. And even then we still bring those patterns in. Let's be real.
Let's be real.
But But there's two basic strategies, right? If we're not getting the love that we need as children, again, the thing that ensures our survival, oh, I'm acceptable in this family, I'm acceptable in this tribe, I'm loved here, therefore I won't get thrown out, therefore I won't die. Our number one priority is like, get as much of that love as we can and that safety. And if it's not freely given, there's sort of really only two strategies. Either we kind of get loud and kind of pursue that love, like, see me, look at me, hear me, where are you? I need you, right? Which would be the more anxious kind of style, the more pursuing style. And in a way, the avoidant is kind of heartbreaking to me, because the avoidance initially normally would have tried this more anxious style. They would have tried to get the love, but they gave up because there was so little coming back.
Yeah.
That then the strategy is, okay, I'm not going to get it. I will give up on getting that connection, and I will turn inwards and do my very best to look after myself. And unfortunately, again, because we don't have the capacity inbuilt inside of us to self-soothe, that basically means kind of numbing out, dissociating, distracting, getting busy. And we bring these styles into relationships. And so often avoidance and anxious find themselves together. Now, each person is doing their very best to get the love that they want and that they need and the connection, but each of their strategies is exactly the thing that terrifies the other. Right? Yeah. I don't mean to laugh because it's really painful.
No, I don't mean to laugh either. You were touching on, for me, it was touching on a personal chord, because when I first started dating my now partner of 10 years, his style for me was incredibly overwhelming. It was really, there was so much love coming at me. And it was just like this big wave crashing down on me. And I was going, this is intense. And too much. And so really learning, but we each do a dance with our attachment styles. And I love that you bring up the nervous system responses, because for him and I, we're real in the world of fight, flight, freeze. We're fighters. I've talked about this in other episodes, and it's what we learned in our family systems. It's also in our bodies, right? The body just remembers, okay, this is how it's go time. Yeah. So we've really had to learn how to disengage from that, and really, and then, and that's attuning to the whole, because I love Stan Tatkin's work, right? It's a whole nervous system and you can really dysregulate and dysregulate the other person. Whereas some therapists would say that's too much emphasis on, but I love your face.
No, I mean, we are intimately connected at all times.
Yeah.
Again, as you said, nervous system to nervous system, whether we're consciously aware of it or not, we are impacting each other profoundly all the time. Yeah. As you said that, so I know Stan Tatkin actually a little bit more, did more of a deep dive into Sue Johnson's work, emotionally focused couples therapy. And what I really love about the way that she sort of teaches us therapists how to frame it is to say, like, it's so easy to look at our partner and go, it's their fault, right? If she would just calm down, like not be so loud, or if he would just ask me how I'm feeling, right? And so we it's so easy. We look out through these eyes, and what do we see? The other person. So our first reaction is their fault. Yeah. They would just be different. But what Sue Johnson really encourages is to look at, it's actually the negative cycle that starts to happen when we feel disconnected and we feel scared. And again, our nervous system is going, oh my God, if I don't get reconnected with this person, I'm going to die. It's primal stuff. We got to look at it's the cycle of disconnection is the problem, not the other person. It's the cycle that we get into. And so can we interrupt the cycle? And so to look at that sort of pursuer withdrawer dynamic, the pursuer, when they feel their partner withdrawing because maybe the partner feels there's a lot of emotion in the room, and their strategy as children when there's a lot of emotion is, I'm just going to pull back and I'm going to kind of try to self-soothe. For the pursuer, that represents abandonment. And so they get loud and they can start to get critical and a little spiky of like, but basically their nervous system is saying, where are you? I'm terrified. I need you. But it comes out as, you always walk away. You never want to resolve stuff. Now that, right? Now that to the withdrawer is terrifying, right? That's overwhelming. They feel criticized. And what do? They withdraw more, because that's how they do their best to self-soothe. And then that scares the pursuer even more. Oh my God, now he's even further away. Now I need to get louder. So each person's strategy to find safety triggers the other. So we need to interrupt it. Mm-hmm. So for the withdrawer, it might be just understanding that when your partner is getting critical, underneath that is a little kid, right? Inside of her, and always her, it could be him. Yeah. Inside of your partner is a little kid who's terrified that they're losing connection, right? And they're saying and doing stuff that's not true for them, but it's a desperate attempt to get your attention. Mm-hmm. So can that help the withdrawer to stay more present? Or if they need to go away and attempt to self-regulate, can they at least let their partner know, I love you, I'm going to walk around the block and I'll be back in 2 hours and we will talk about it and we will resolve this. That's regulating for the nervous system of the more anxiously attached person. And for the more anxiously attached person with their withdrawing partner, no, it's not that your partner doesn't love you. Yeah. They're not trying to do this to just be, some callous kind of person. They're overwhelmed. Their nervous system is overwhelmed. And they need to come back into that sort of sweet spot in the middle in order for you to be able to feel them at all, in order for you to feel any kind of connection. So that's the big thing in couples therapy, is working to step out of the cycle of disconnection and create a cycle of connection. And I help my couples to have these more positive interactions by creating safety in the room, by kind of pointing out what we're pointing out here. And it's amazing when you hear one of the partners be able to get more vulnerable and go, you know what, when I'm pulling away, I'm terrified that I'm disappointing you. I'm terrified that I'm failing you. I feel so much shame that I can't even look at your eyes in those moments. And I need to pull away because I'm terrified that I'm destroying our relationship. And I don't know how to come back to you and how to find you. And then you'll see tears in the other person's eyes and they go, oh, I thought it was the opposite. I thought you just didn't care about me. I thought you didn't love me. And amazing moments, sort of moments of connection, healing moments can happen here right in front of you in session. And then they actually take on a life of their own outside of session. It's like, oh, this is possible for us. There is a different way of doing it. We've had an experience of it. We'll stay with the experience. What does that feel like as you look into your partner's eyes and you see he wants to connect with you, right? He's here. How does that feel? Sometimes that can feel overwhelming if we've been seeking connection for a long time and we've been let down. And a part of us will go like, I don't trust this. Okay, so tell your partner that. Rather than pulling away, tell your partner, I'm really appreciating you trying to meet me here. And there's part of me that is worried that this is going to go away. I'm going to open my heart to you. This is going to go away. I'm going to crash. So I need time, right, to get used to this. Just a little.
No,
just a little
it's really wild when you use the terms disconnection and connection. There was actually years ago within our relationship that I wrote in a journal entry, and the title of it was Disconnection and Connection. And years ago, before I really was doing a deep dive into my own therapy and my own deep work, I didn't understand why I experienced this really heavy kind of disconnection and connection. And it, for me, felt like this very in and out. And I'm in and I get overwhelmed and I'm out. And, and it was so beautifully what you just articulated, I think, for the audience. It's the dance in relationships is complicated. And there's so many factors at play. And that's why, love is beautiful, but it's work and
work.
Yeah.
And it's and the piece about connection being like a fundamental, like human need, fundamental to our survival, which is why, things get so intense in relationships, because when that connection is broken, again, in a mammalian response and a nervous system response. That's red alert to my nervous system. Connection is broken. Therefore, to that part of me that evolved, that all of us evolved in very harsh environments in the savannah in Africa. If I don't have my close people around me, if that connection is broken, I die. So we have big reactions when that connection is broken. But to know that those reactions are only reflective of the love of how much that person means to us. And then, of course, finding ways to ideally interrupt and tend to our partner before we get to that place of kind of intense explosion.
So I wanted to ask you, are there any, and particularly for the audience listening, are there any take-home sort of exercises or things that you could really offer? I know within the last year of 2020, right, couples have had to really step into an intense space of, if you're living with a partner at home, the stuff has really risen to the surface because of the pandemic, et cetera. So what are some things that you offer couples to really, I would say, number one, increase the positive interactions that you talked about before. And then also the sort of, when noticing that disconnect and connection, how to interrupt so it doesn't become a disconnection.
Yeah. A couple of things. The very first thing that just came to mind is circling back. So like, just as what creates secure attachment for children is not just an attuned parent, like that's helpful, but actually your parent doesn't need to be attuned to you. Only something like 30% of the time do we need to be attuned with our parent. Does a child need to be attuned? Provided that the parent circles back to repair in the moments when the child and parent miss each other, right? So repair actually lets the child know, I can miss somebody, even we can get in an argument, we can not see eye to eye, and it doesn't mean the end of the relationship. It's just a bump in the road. We get confidence that in fact, that builds resilience. That builds resilience, this inbuilt anticipation that it's okay, we can have bumps in the road and we're going to repair. So the same is true for couples. There's always going to be moments we're going to miss each other. There's no way to be perfectly attuned to another person at all times. There'll be many moments we miss each other. But the circle back idea is, if we don't catch it in the moment, we might notice it later in the day. We might go like, oh my God, my partner made what in couples therapy we call a bid for connection, right? Mm-hmm. My partner offered me a cup of tea this morning and wanted to, I don't know, to sit outside or to sit at the table and drink the tea with me, but I was too busy. My mind was on work, and I just took the tea and I went and sat in front of my computer. Mm-hmm. So that was a big bid for connection that was missed. That's gonna leave feelings in your partner, right? That's gonna trigger it's so small, but it could easily trigger some sense of like, I'm not important to my partner, right? Mm-hmm. So when I work with my individuals, we work on this a lot of like, okay, when you notice that, can you go back to your partner that evening and go, you know what, honey, I missed you. I think that you wanted to connect. I think that you were hoping that we would sit down and talk. And I would have really liked that too. And my mind was somewhere else. And I left you. And I'm so sorry if that left you feeling abandoned or less than or not valuable to me. Mm-hmm. How did it feel for you? Tell me about what that was like. So that's an example of repair. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a practice that we can take on. Part of it requires us being sort of aware. I suppose the other part of it is being aware of what are bids for connection. And they happen in very subtle ways. Our partner won't always say to us, hey, I want to sit down and connect with you, right? That's a vulnerable thing to say. Yeah. Because if we're that vulnerable and our partner goes, well, I'm busy. And then it's like, oh, it's a dagger through the heart. Yeah. So like, watch out for the bids for connection. They can be very subtle. Mm-hmm. Do you want to take the dog for a walk around the block? Or do you want to put the kettle on? It can be very small things. And if you can catch those bids for connection, know that it's more than about having tea together. It's about feeling, it's a time to feel connected. Yes. To feel interested in.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think actually once I learned about bids for connection, also I'm saying this to the audience right now, when you become more aware of that, you can really see it in the relationship. And you're like, oh, that was a bid for connection. And even in the moment, if you're feeling a little bit stressed out or kind of, fast paced or whatnot, and like, oh, I don't really feel like sitting and having a tea right now. But acknowledging, okay, this was a bid for connection. So either can I express myself in a skillful way, which is, honey, I see that you want to connect with me right now, and I'm just feeling, I'm not in the space, but it has nothing to do with you. And I don't know, that could
Yep.
be maybe not damaging. I'm curious your thoughts on that,
No, I
because
love
there have been moments where either my partner or I, express a bid for connection, and the other one's like, I'm not there right now. I love you, but
that's perfect. To me, that's perfect.
okay.
Because we're not always going to be in a place where we can be emotionally available. We're just
Mhm.
not. And that's honest. But the piece of and I love you, that piece, and I love you and I care about you, and can we do this tonight? Can we do this tomorrow?
Yeah.
And it's just so regulating for the other
Mhm.
person's nervous system that
Mhm.
is asking, are you here for me?
Yeah.
Do I matter to you? Am I valuable to you? We're
Yes.
just like a little pet. Yes, you are. You know, like a little dog, right? Or something, right? Who's a
Yeah,
little anxious. Yeah,
yeah,
tone of
absolutely.
tone of voice. I mean, that's
Ooh.
I think I'm not sure if that stands stuff. I can't remember quite where I read this, but this lilting
Uh-huh.
tone of voice is so soothing, like a mother's lullaby is so soothing to our partner. So being
Yeah.
really careful of, like, if I'm stressed and I'm about something else, but I bring that hard edge to my voice when I'm talking to my partner, or I'm distracted, or my face is a little blank, that can be a danger cue to our partner, right? That tone of voice,
Yeah.
lack of facial expression. We've got this negativity bias in our brain,
Mhm.
which pays more attention to negative stimuli than positive ones. And that part of our brain goes, oh, we will transpose onto our partner's face. They must be mad at me. I must have done something wrong.
Yeah.
They're being mean. And then off we go to like a more defended place, and things
Mhm.
start to spiral. So watching our tone of voice, our expression,
Right.
breathing. And one other thought, like, for those of us who tend to withdraw
Uh-huh.
when we start to feel a lot, or things start to feel a little tense in the relationship,
Mhm.
over time, if we can start to name that to our partner, hey, I can feel myself starting to withdraw. Just even naming that again lets our partner know it's not something that they're doing. This is something we bring from our past
Yeah.
with us. I'm starting to feel myself withdrawing. I want to stay here, but could we slow it down? You
Mhm.
know, could you hold my hand
Mhm.
or rub my back? Could we breathe? It's vulnerable stuff, but
Mhm.
it starts to interrupt that pattern if we're one of the more withdrawing types, of having to pull away and therefore risking triggering our partner. And again, sometimes we will have to pull away, and then we just need to name it. I need to pull away. I love you. We'll
Mhm.
talk again later.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. And also you bringing up, I am feeling, so simple, so important, but also so hard. I think for so many people, that really vulnerable and stepping out of the ego space a lot of times where we feel we need to be right, or if you're in a combative space with your partner, really going into that, I am feeling really overwhelmed right now by how you're speaking to me. Or even, from Stan's work, I mean, even the looks of the eyes, right? Being able to say, I am feeling, and he would talk about that threat to the system. I'm just feeling in some intense stuff come up if you look at me this way. And yeah, really staying in that I think that's important to remember.
For sure. And remember, and the other piece, just bouncing off that, remembering to inside your partner
Mhm.
is a frightened little kid.
Yeah.
How would we talk to a frightened little kid? We're not going to start going like this. I mean, you know, our impulse might be to do so, and we might still do that because we're human.
Yeah.
But in our more mindful moments, how would we talk to a frightened kid? How would we draw them out? How would we soothe them?
Ooh,
Yeah.
which Ciuin brings me to inner child work, because even as you were saying that, I was going, there's definitely a listener out there. And I was one of these people where if you bring up inner child or that frightened little girl or little
Mm,
boy,
mm,
there was really something in me. I mean, clearly I was not in touch with it. I
mhm.
would fight against that. My therapist would bring it up and I was like, "Oh, little girl, like what?" And I couldn't access her. I didn't want to go there. It felt silly. It felt
Mhm,
childish, for lack
mhm.
of better words. Um, so could you speak to that a little bit? If somebody is feeling somewhat like, ugh,
Yeah. Yeah.
oh, that's kind of like, I don't want to look at my partner, or that feels weird, little boy or little girl, or
Well, I
even
think, yeah,
themselves. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. To bounce off what you just said, like I can understand that, like, oh, it feels kind of like I just don't want to go there. It feels childish. And I think inner child work as well. It kind of, the term itself can feel a bit sort of like new agey or something like that. It gets banded around a lot, and maybe has some sort of negative connotations. But that piece about sort of feeling this almost like, yeah, this pulling back from wanting to go there, and we sort of will judge that type of work. It makes a lot of sense, right? Because if you think about it, that for a lot of us, that young part inside is the one that has been holding this feeling of abandonment, feeling of pain, feeling of I'm not good enough, right? As children, we cannot go through our day-to-day lives feeling all that stuff.
Mhm.
We have to dissociate this. Bonnie Badenoch, who writes a lot about neuroscience, she says these intolerable feelings and experiences will be siphoned off into the brain in what's called a dissociated neural net. So they're held outside the mainstream flow of the brain. This shame, this pain, this not enoughness, this there's something wrong with me. Because a kid cannot function when that's at the forefront. We can't go to school, we can't do play. We push that stuff aside. So it's adaptive. But the problem is it sits in there like a time bomb, right? And later in life, something triggers us. The way our partner looks at us triggers that part of us that feels not enough, or they say something dismissive. And suddenly all the old feelings that were sort of siphoned off, that were held outside of consciousness, come rushing back. And because they haven't been tended to for 20 years, or maybe ever, if we haven't had good therapy, or somebody very supportive in our life who's really able to be with those parts of us, the rawness comes rushing back, right? So when your therapist goes, oh, let's do some inner child work, a part of us knows there may very well be a well of pain right here. I don't want to go near that inner child. I'm going to be engulfed by that, right? That was our experience as children. Those experiences are overwhelming. If we didn't push them away, we'd be engulfed by it. So it's scary. And so sometimes we have to approach really slowly. Another part of it is this young part of us may have been ignored, probably has been ignored for a very long time. So there may be the young part may not want to have any part to do with the adult us either. Oh, why should I trust you now? You've left me here for 20 years. Now you want to be friends? If I open up to you, what if you go away? What if I open up to you and you don't come back? So for me, we've got to be super respectful and gentle. And we just as therapists, we just check it out. We don't even call it inner child work. We don't even name it. I might say to a client, this part of you that's feeling overwhelmed right now, how old does that part of you feel? Right? How old is that feeling familiar to you? And often, almost always, people will have a sense, oh God, that feels like 7-year-old me, right? I feel like I'm 7 years old. And if this is the first time that we're meeting that 7-year-old, we're going to go really gently, right? Is it okay if we just we just hang out here? Like, is there, I don't know, do you have an image of that 7-year-old? Where do you see him or her in the bedroom, wherever it might be? But we just go really gently and really slowly. And we be really respectful. For some clients, it may take years to get to the point where they're willing to start to step closer to that young part, because again, there's probably such a level of pain there that maybe the therapy relationship between me and the client needs to be really strong, right? Before the client is going to be willing to start to open there. And we got to work with the protectors. That's another part. So the inner child has protectors around it. The protector might say, these are parts of us, might say, I'm good. I don't need anybody. My childhood was fine. I'm an independent person, right? Those protectors they have a job to do. So we need to get permission of the protectors also. If the protectors are not on board, there's no way we're going to get anywhere near that younger, more vulnerable stuff. So we need to say to those protective parts inside of us, thank you so much, right? For keeping me safe, for being vigilant all these years. You must be exhausted, but thank you. I want you to be right here with us. I don't want you to go anywhere. Does it feel okay for me to acknowledge you? So it's a delicate process. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. There's part of me that is wondering if we could walk through, I want to be mindful of time. I know you have a session. If you and I could do a little guided inner child together before, and we could gear this really towards the audience, so I'm talking to you guys, maybe taking a seat, taking a moment for yourself, looking at what needs to be acknowledged. And I know, Ciuin, for you and I, usually we do, or I do a guided meditation when somebody's in the thick of it, right? They're in an intense moment. I see they're really overwhelmed. I can connect to where this has been triggered from the past. But yeah, I leave this open to you, or we can go into some rapid fire questions that I have for you towards the end.
Okay. we can give it a go.
Give it a go?
Sure, let's try it. I would say it might be helpful to start with, maybe, so yeah, this is going to be an attenuated, very short, fast track version of what we would actually do in therapy. It's not actually therapy, it's kind of a little demonstration.
Yes.
But I might ask you to think about a moment recently where you felt maybe triggered, or I don't know, a little overwhelmed or scared, or maybe you can just think back over the last few weeks to a moment where you felt a little triggered.
Yes. Let's think about this. Okay, so I just purchased a house. I told you this. And it brings up just stuff around money, survival, kind of needing to be that intense support system. Already brings me to tears. Yeah.
Just staying with the feeling for a moment. Yeah. Just noticing we're here together. You're not alone. And taking a breath. Yeah. Yeah, and I just want to check if you know what the feeling is, these tears, what this feeling is that's present right now.
Yeah, I think it's it's been my natural state of being a caretaker, and when my mom was sick and she had cancer and she was dying, it was this really, I was 17 and I had to really kind of like buckle up. And I always say it's when my masculine energy came out, and it's also
Yep.
yeah. So it's this hypervigilance to caretake and to kind of like take it all on.
Yeah, I'm so appreciating you sharing this moment, and it sounds really well. I can't imagine what that was like. I want to just ask you, as you go back to that 17-year-old you, where do you see her? Is there an image? Is there an image that comes to mind? Or a place you see her?
Yeah, interestingly enough, it's in bed with my mom.
In bed with your mom. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to ask you, what was the main feeling that you were feeling then?
I think it was just, yeah, I mean, it was a teenager
Mm.
grappling with, I mean, the feeling was just overwhelm. It was pure overwhelm as to, oh, fuck, how am I going to take care of myself? And if she does pass away, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do life?
I want to ask you, if I can, this young you who's feeling this overwhelm, what did you need? What did you need in that moment? What did this 17-year-old overwhelmed person, young you, need? What would have been helpful?
Support.
Or, yeah,
Support.
yeah. And I want to ask you, who, just in your imagination, could be someone from today, could be someone from your past,
Mhm.
who would feel supportive, who would feel safe and supportive to that young you?
I would actually say, Sharon, my old therapist. Um,
Great.
yeah, she obviously became such a maternal figure for me.
Mhm,
And
mhm. I want to just invite you, if you could, just to imagine, if it's okay, if that feels okay to the 17-year-old you, that Sharon, is that her name?
mhm,
Yeah, that Sharon's with you. I want you just to imagine that, make it as real as you can in your imagination. Feel her presence, support, or warmth. Yeah, notice what that's like. Notice what that's like for the young you to have this supportive, nurturing adult by your side.
it's interesting. There's something I feel within me that's like,
Mm-hmm.
she's there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, but I'm not fully receiving it.
That's okay. I'm just going to invite you just to take in as much as feels okay, right? No pressure whatsoever.
Mhm.
Even if it's 5%, even if it's just 5% for support, whatever feels tolerable.
Mhm. Yeah, we're sharing a big hug.
Great. Just feel the warmth. Make that hug as real as you can in your imagination. Feel the warmth of it. Yeah. Mm. Yeah, and I just want to check in just before we finish, just what you're noticing inside now, what you're noticing in your body. You feel that hug.
Yeah, there's a softening.
There's a softening.
Mhm.
Is it okay if we just before we finish, just make a little space? Make some space inside for this softening feeling. Yeah, yeah. Hmm. Wow. Yeah, I want to check in with you. How you doing?
Well, didn't expect to go there on my podcast. um, Thank you, Ciuin. I
You're
think that was,
welcome.
yeah, yeah. I guess what I want to say to this is, to anybody listening, I think no matter how much work you do on yourself,
Mhm.
there's always these and the inner child that needs to be tended to from
Yeah,
time to time. Right.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And even, because I didn't expect all of the tears and all of the charge to come up, but it's still, there are just these spaces that, yeah,
Yeah. I just want to really appreciate your courage, your vulnerability, your trust in me
yeah.
to
Thank you.
just do that mini dive. Sorry that we didn't have more time to
No, but I think that was a good
really
it was a good mini for people to hear and
yeah.
for them to potentially walk through themselves.
And
And yeah,
I think what what I want to say, if it's okay, just
of, of course.
bring us back to the kind of work or the inner child work, is that as we do that, as we give in our imagination to
Mhm.
our younger selves what it was that they needed at the time, especially if we're able to engage in the memory in an emotionally connected way, in the way that you did,
Yeah.
that experience of that hug and of your therapist, that's now going to get, as that memory gets reconsolidated, right? As that memory goes back to long term storage, it's no longer the same. That memory is going to take with it the feeling of that hug, the feeling of some sense of support. Even if you could only take in 10% of the support, that's okay.
Yeah.
That memory will have a different felt sense when you come back to it. And that's called memory reconsolidation. It's this wonderful thing that our memories are not set, they're malleable. Every time that we go back to them in an emotionally connected way and give ourselves the support, the protection, the nurturance we needed at the time, that starts to shift over time our internal landscape from one of maybe I'm alone in the world, right? I'm alone and overwhelmed, to little by little, there's support.
Yeah.
Not alone. I
Yeah.
can do this. I can get through this. It's kind of the really wonderful thing about neuroplasticity, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
brain is not set. We are not set. Even the past isn't set. Yeah.
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 You're snotting. Yeah. Host. Yes, but it's so, Ciuin, it's yeah, the neuroplasticity is real, and I think that people, yeah, hearing this, it's absolutely, and I think again, you gave such a good explanation of that towards the end.
Mhm.
So again, I want to be mindful of your time. And I do just want to switch gears. And I also want to thank my audience for going on that very vulnerable journey with me. And thank you again, Ciuin, before I go into the next questions. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's important for people to know that humans are not humans, excuse me,
Yeah,
therapists are human, and we're still doing our inner child work, as I'm sure you are. And
of course. And thank God we are. Thank God we're
yes,
because we know and we experience the same things and we have the same challenges
yeah,
as the people who come to us.
yeah,
And that just feels really important
yeah,
to acknowledge. Yeah.
absolutely. So when I say these are sort of rapid fire questions, it's because the reason I put them that way is because they're sort of deeper questions that I think individuals could answer for hours. You and I could sit and have a cup of tea and go on and on and on about these. But I'd like for you to just sort of have quick responses, your gut response to them.
Mhm.
Okay. And here we go. So,
Okay.
this one being, why do you think we are here on this planet as
Mm,
humans?
mm. The gut response, two things come to me. One, to appreciate this planet and this opportunity. I love this author, Brian Swim, who says that we can be like the heart and mind of the planet. We have this ability to stand in awe right at a sunset, to stand in awe at the stars above, to stand in awe at one another. I feel a lot of awe towards you right now for where you just went, and your courage and your vulnerability. So one, I think, is to appreciate everything that's here, and I think the other is to appreciate one another and to be here for one another. We're a social species, and our culture pulls us down this individualistic track that I think is at the root of so many of our problems. So the other piece is like, nothing that you can experience as a human being is foreign to me, right? No emotion, no thought, no feeling. Yeah, and sort of breaking down those barriers between us, because I think that we find comfort and we actually thrive with one another.
That we do. That we do. And I think we're all seeing just how deeply we're being impacted these days of, not having this kind of freedom to hug and be with one another, and right, that interconnectedness and that energy exchange that we need. I know all of us are going about it in the ways that we can to stay mentally sane and connected, but it's still different. It's really different. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Next one. Why do you think you're here? Personally, Ciuin, this incarnation, if you believe that you incarnated.
I think it's along a similar lines of what I said about how I think what we're all here for. What makes the most sense to me and is the most regulating for me and my nervous system and my heart and soul is to go like, I'm here to, I think, to provide service in the best way that I'm made for. And I do feel that's through both being a therapist and also just providing sort of a safe, I would call it a safe landing pad for whomever I try to, at least for whomever I come into contact with, because I think that human beings, we're all seeking safe landing pads again for our nervous systems to go, I'm okay, I'm safe, I can be me, I can breathe, right? And therefore I can take in beauty, and therefore I can be in appreciation of all this that's around here. And for me also, just to appreciate this privilege of being human. What a chance. And I go down the other track too, right? And I get caught in frustration, I get caught in despair at times. But if I can do the practices and bring myself back to ways of appreciation, and sometimes that's as simple, and I'm lucky that I'm right by the beach at the moment, that's like running on the beach last night. Yeah. Of all things, playing Eminem. Why Eminem? I don't know. I need to get fired up.
I wouldn't picture you listening to Eminem, but I love it. You needed a fired up moment, Ciuin.
It's a new thing, but I could be fired up and in appreciation. I was sort of in energized appreciation. Also of the resilience of the human spirit. That was part of it too.
Oh yeah. Oh God.
Sometimes getting angry on our own behalf, not meaning that we project it out into the world, but feeling that self-protective energy. Yeah. And sometimes that's towards a younger part of ourselves. And that's kind of what I was working with as I was running, is great. Yeah. Right. That younger part needs to know that was messed up, what happened. And I'm here for you now. And I won't let that happen again.
Yeah. Beautiful. Last two. What do you think happens after death?
I have no idea. I really don't. I'm not even going to conjecture. I don't know. I mean, my sort of just like logical, rational brain is just like, hey, we continue the journey. The atoms in our body continue the journey. That's for sure.
Yeah.
They're already billions of years old. They already come from the stars, right? And they just form together to create this like process that is me or you. And so the atoms of my body are going to go off and probably do all sorts of extraordinary things. So that's kind of a cool thought. But beyond that, I don't know. And because I don't know, I try my best to drink in the preciousness of this chance of this life, because I don't know.
Okay. Amazing. And last one. We've all had a mentor or a teacher or just someone in our life say something that has really resonated deeply in our soul, or is there for you?
Well, the first one that comes is Mary Oliver and her lovely poem. And I'm probably not going to get the line right, but she says, "You do not have to crawl through the desert for 1,000 miles repenting." Something, I might have got that wrong.
Yeah.
You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. And was something that I needed to hear at the time, and is still a mantra to me because it's challenging for me to just allow the soft animal of my body to love what it loves, to allow that my organism has its own intelligence, its own rhythms, and that I don't need to dominate that from up here. And that's a daily challenge. So I guess that piece of wisdom sticks with me because it's so hard. Another poet, David White, quoting Mary Oliver in a podcast that I listened to recently, he says, "That only is the $1 million only. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves." And that only is like the $1 million only, because it's so hard. And we're so programmed to be top down.
Yeah.
That this part needs to be in charge or things are going to fall apart.
Right.
But there's so much wisdom in the body, in the unconscious, in the body. And it's, for me, it's a constant practice to notice when I'm controlling from up here, and to try to breathe and try to come back and try to go, there is inherent wisdom in here. Yeah.
Ciuin, I now know, I mean, I've always known why I refer any client that I can't see when I'm filled up, because you are just a gift. I mean, again, I'm waterworks today, but truly, beautiful soul. Yes. So as we wrap up and you go into session, is there a way that you would like people to find you?
Oh, sure. You could, people could just go to my website, which is www.ciuindoherty.com. And that's CIUINDOHERTY.com. That's kind of an easy way. It's got my email and contact details. And I want to say thank you. I was nervous, but this was just rich.
Yes.
And real and multi-layered. And I felt like our bodies were here and our hearts were here. And I really thank you for providing such a beautiful space where I just felt, it did feel like we're in flow.
Yeah.
It felt like we're in flow. So thank you. And I can say equally, this is why I refer clients to you. They're going to have this safe, wonderful landing pad with you, which you're not only full of compassion, you're also able to get excited and passionate and vital and real about life.
Yes.
So
thank you. Oh, I felt those words deeply. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Have beautiful sessions today.
Thank you.
And take care of yourself. And I'll see you up north. We'll be in the water soon together.
I look forward to that.
Okay. Yeah. Bye, Ciuin. Bye. Hi friends, it's Gina here, and I just wanted to let you know that I'm going to be taking a few weeks off of spaces between as I am in the middle of a big move out of Los Angeles. So thank you for your patience and bearing with me. I will be back with a new episode on March 17th, and I look forward to engaging with you all then. Thanks so much. Bye. Hi, friends. If you have been enjoying Spaces Between, please take a moment to subscribe, and leaving a review is the cherry on top. Thank you so much, and I look forward to connecting with you next week.